I just want to start by saying Mark mentioned that how important it is to put resources into fundraising and into legacy giving. And so I'm just really pleased that we do have Manita on board with us to help us further our goals around legacy giving, which we recognize is just so important for the sustainability of the organization. We're beginning the 4th year of our 5-year strategic plan, and started on April the 1st. And one of the key objectives of the strategic plan is a sustainable future for PWRDF. So the work that our partners in Canada and around the world are doing in supporting vulnerable people is so needed. And unfortunately, it's going to continue to be needed in the future. While we're continuing to envision a truly just, healthy, and peaceful world, we know, especially in these times that we're in right now, that we're still quite a long way from that world, and there's a lot of work to do. So that's why it's so important for us to do the work that's needed now to make sure that the work of PWRDF partners, current and future partners, can continue. And that means that we need to do the work now to make sure that PWRDF will be in a position to continue providing the financial resources needed to respond to future emergencies, which we're seeing. We were just talking about climate situations and storms and so on. We're seeing they're just becoming more frequent, and they're only going to continue to increase, so that our partners can continue empowering women and girls and providing people with food security, helping refugees and displaced people, supporting reconciliation with our Indigenous peoples in Canada, supporting the struggle for human rights, helping farmers with climate change, all of those things, and so much more. So one really important aspect of a sustainable future for PWRDF is legacy giving. Manita is going to say more about what that means, but just to say for me personally, it means thinking about what I want to do now and in the future to make sure that my legacy includes support for the continuing work of PWRDF, which is an organization that is so important to me. So recently I planned my estate, and as well as thinking about the security and the well-being of my family, I also made sure that I thought about how I could be part of a sustainable future for PWRDF. To borrow some of the words from the famous prayer that many people attribute to Oscar Romero, but actually it's by Bishop Kent Utener. And I actually find this prayer a really helpful one in these really uncertain times that we're in right now. So some of those words that I think kind of pertain to legacy giving and thinking about a sustainable future. We're planting the seeds that will one day grow, and we're laying foundations that will need further development. We may never see the end results, but that is the difference between the master builder and the worker. We are workers, not master builders, ministers, not messiahs. We are prophets of a future not our own. And with that, I think I will turn it back over to you, Kim.
Great, thanks, Carolyn. So Manita is our newest team member, so she gets a slightly more inclusive introduction. So in April of this year, Manita Swati joined us as our senior advisor for major gifts and planned giving. Before coming to PWRDF, she was with the Nature Conservancy of Canada as a development officer in charge of planned giving, in which she raised funds for climate-related conversations and projects. Prior to that, she was with Plan International Canada as a development officer in planned giving, and where she was raising funds for international development through local and international partners. So welcome, Manita.
Thank you so much, everyone. So I don't think I have to introduce myself now, which is great. But yeah, as mentioned, I've recently joined the PWRDF as the new senior advisor of planned giving and major gifts. It's so lovely to meet everyone. I'm hoping we will have some time to chat after this session, and you will have an opportunity to provide some really valuable feedback. So let's get started. Today we will be discussing legacy giving. So next slide. So the question that comes up the most when discussing legacy giving is, what kind of world would we like to leave behind for future generations, especially considering current events? As you know, PWRDF supports some very crucial work around the world as it relates to humanitarian crises, development work, and emergencies. And we hope that through legacy giving, we can help to ensure that these programs continue well into the future and achieve our goal of, next slide, a truly just and healthy and peaceful world for generations to come. You can go to the next slide. So what exactly is legacy giving? Legacy giving is the ultimate donor-centered program whereby a donor can choose the charitable giving option that meets their philanthropic needs and balances personal, family, and tax considerations. It also supports donors in building their legacy and fulfilling their vision for the future. So considering all of this, why is legacy giving important? Next slide. Legacy giving can provide opportunities for donors to make an impact using their assets and not their current income. It is a way to plan for the betterment of our world and the causes you care the most about. And I think that we need a drum roll here, tax credits. Statistics tell us that for many Canadians, the value of their accumulated assets, such as real estate, registered investment accounts, and life insurance, continues to grow. Yet 90% of all charitable gifts in Canada come from people's current income and cash rather than from their accumulated assets. And tax laws in Canada are therefore changing to encourage Canadians to give more generously to charities from their assets, not just their current income. So you can claim charitable donations up to 75% of your annual net income in any 1 year. And furthermore, any unused credits may be carried forward for an additional 5 years. Next slide. So it's important to mention that and emphasize that such gift planning strategies are not a form of tax evasion. Rather, they are utilizing the tax laws precisely as they were intended to be used. And as per the federal government, we can either be voluntary philanthropists, which means involuntary philanthropists, which means allowing the government to direct where our wealth will go through taxes, or voluntary philanthropists, which means to partner with the government to redirect much of what would have gone to taxes to the charities we support. The choice is ours. Next slide. So in Ontario, a donation of up to $200 to a registered charity is eligible for a combined tax credit of 20%. For gifts over $200, the tax credit increases to 40% of the value of your gift. You can then use your accumulated tax credits to reduce your taxes accordingly. So for example, if you gave $2,000 to PWRDF, the first $200 would be eligible for $40 in tax credits. The remaining $1,800 would be eligible for $722 in tax credits for a total of $762. And you can apply this total against any tax owing. What this means is that for every dollar you give to PWRDF over $200, you are actually only paying 60 cents. Next slide. There are various different types of legacy gifts, and there's a misconception that legacy gifts can only be utilized after one passes. However, there are many different gifting options which can actually be used during one's lifetime as well in their will, such as gift of stocks, cash, and real estate. Next slide. So as mentioned, there are various types of legacy gifts that we will be reviewing. However, the most popular types of legacy gifts are bequests, securities, life insurance policies, and retirement assets. I know many of you, in addition to being PWRDF supporters, actually speak to other supporters about our mission and why it's so crucial that other people continue to support our different programs. However, you do not have to be an expert on these types of gifts. If you do meet a supporter who is interested in learning more and you are comfortable doing so, please feel free to provide an overview. And if they wish to learn more, you can direct them to myself or Carolyn. However, if you don't feel comfortable doing so, and it's perfectly understandable, please feel free to direct them to myself or Carolyn. So the first is a gift and will, as everyone had mentioned and is quite familiar with. So a gift and will can be a dollar amount, a percentage, a specific asset, or the residual amount of your estate. If you choose to leave a charitable gift in your will, your estate will be issued a tax receipt for 100% of the amount of the bequest, resulting in a tax credit on your estate's final income tax return. Up to 100% of net income can be claimed as a charitable gift during the year of one's passing. And the trustee of the estate may also apply any unused tax credits from previous years, again claiming up to 100% of net income. This means that you can make a substantial gift to PWRDF through your estate, and your family or loved ones can actually benefit from the tax savings. And there are actually a couple different types of bequests. There's the general bequest, which is to designate a specific sum, so whether that's 5,000 or 50,000. There is a residual bequest, which is to designate a percentage of whatever remains in your estate after all named beneficiaries, debts, and administrative fees for settling the estate have been paid. And there's a contingent bequest, which allows you to make a primary bequest for a relative, for example, a spouse or a child, with the contingency that if that relative should predecease you, the bequest would pass to the charity of your choice. Next slide. So we will be now getting into gifts of securities. Gifts of stocks, bonds, or mutual funds that have appreciated in value are a tax-smart way to make a legacy gift or a current gift. When you sell a stock, bond, or mutual fund privately, 50% of all capital gains are subject to tax. But if you donate those same securities directly to a registered charity, such as PWRDF, all taxes on capital gains are eliminated, plus you receive a tax receipt for the full market value of the securities. Next slide. So for example, say many years ago, you purchased $10,000 worth of a particular stock. And a couple of years later, the value of the stock has appreciated to $50,000. This means there was a $40,000 increase or capital gain. If you choose to cash out those stocks, the capital gain of $40,000 will be charged with a capital gains tax, which is up to 50% of the capital gain, or $20,000 in this case. However, if you choose to donate the stocks to a charity, this will eliminate the capital gains, and you receive a tax receipt for the total value of the stock, or $50,000. This is also the difference between donating the stocks or the shares directly to a charity versus cashing out the shares and donating the proceeds to a charity. Next slide. So the next type of gifting vehicle are retirement assets. You can name a charity the beneficiary of your registered retirement savings plan, so RRSPs, or registered retirement income funds, RRIFs, or TSFAs, or tax-free savings account. Your registered funds are not a part of your estate, so they are external, and this means they are not subject to probate fees. And a gift of registered funds can help offset the significant tax burden on your estate. In addition, your estate will receive a tax receipt for the total value of your gift, and it can be claimed against 100% of the net income of your final tax return, in the preceding year's return, or for your estate tax returns. Next slide. So for example, if you have a $100,000 RRIF and you wish to actually leave it to a family member or a loved one, just by doing that, it can potentially be reduced to almost half merely through taxes. However, if you change the beneficiary of your RRIF to a charity, by doing so, of course, it'll have a larger impact on the causes you care about, but at the same time, your estate will receive a charitable receipt to offset any taxes. Next slide. You can also consider a gift of a life insurance policy. And you actually can do this in 3 different ways. The first way is to purchase a new life insurance policy and name a charity such as PWRDF as the owner and beneficiary. And the premiums you pay will qualify for a charitable tax receipt. You can choose to donate an existing policy to PWRDF, and you will receive a charitable tax receipt for the fair market value of your life insurance policy. Or you can name PWRDF as the beneficiary of your existing life insurance policy, and your estate will receive a charitable tax receipt when the proceeds are paid to the charity. So donating a life insurance policy isn't subject to taxes, probate costs, or estate debt, and you can make a substantial contribution through relatively small monthly or yearly payments. And at the same time, you'll be rewarded for your donation through charitable tax receipts. And the premiums on, for example, a $25,000 policy will cost far less than the payout amount over time. And when you include your tax credits, you end up paying even less overall. And finally, you can go to the next slide. There is the option of endowment funds. You can also choose to set up your own personal endowment fund with a one-time donation, a pledge over time, or through a gift in your will. And your fund can be named after you, your family, or in honor of a loved one, so it can be personalized. And the advantage of creating an endowment fund is it creates a permanent and reliable source of income for the charity that you care about, which will allow greater flexibility into the future as they plan other programs. As well, you will receive a charitable tax receipt for each gift you make towards your endowment fund. So this is a general overview of a couple legacy gifts. If there are any other gifting options you'd like to learn more about, please get in touch and I'd be happy to go into more detail. But we will now be discussing some strategies as to how we intend to roll out our legacy giving program at PWRDF. You can go to the next slide, which will begin with Willpower. So PWRDF has joined more than 400 charities, financial advisors, legal teams from across Canada in a campaign to show how people can leave a lasting legacy and take care of the ones that they love through a gift in their will. So it is very similar to a campaign that had taken place in the United Kingdom called Remember a Charity in Your Will. And Willpower, like Remember a Charity in Your Will, is a national public education effort designed to inspire Canadians to make a significant impact on the causes they care about through a gift in their will to a charity of their choice. You can go to the next slide. It is spearheaded by the Canadian Association of Gift Planners, or CAGP, and in collaboration with many of Canada's leading charities and advisors. The campaign's goal is to raise the level of charitable giving through wills from 5% to 8.5% by 2030. And the aim is to do this through financial education. Next slide. So this campaign has been running from September 1st, 2022 to May 2022. So in a couple days, this particular campaign run will end. And it's done through a series of newspapers, billboards, and digital marketing initiatives. And the goal is to move away from the misconception that charitable legacy giving is not an option. It's not an option if your plan is to leave your assets behind for your loved ones. In fact, you can do both and benefit from the tax credits. So I should mention that this campaign is currently in its year 2. The first year was tested in the Niagara Horseshoe region through ads, newspapers, and digital marketing initiatives. However, this year the campaign has gone national, or at least to the capital or main cities within each province. As you can see from their media schedule, there's been billboard ads, newspaper ads, all sorts of pieces that has been done to really spread the word of Willpower. And their goal next year is to direct the campaign even further into communities and cities that they didn't have the capacity to access prior. So Willpower is currently prompting Canadians to use their website, which provides access to a directory of financial advisors, legacy calculators, which you can use to calculate your assets against what you may potentially, try to leave to a charity. Say, if you are considering, you think your estate can be valued at X amount, but you'd only like to leave 5% to a charity. You'd be able to do all of those calculations through their legacy calculator. As well, there are tips on estate planning and how you can donate to a charity in a tax-effective manner that best suits your needs. Next slide. So through Willpower, we have created a landing page for supporters to learn more about PWRDF as they utilize the other gift planning tools I had just mentioned. And really, it's about a way for PWRDF to pitch our case for support. Why is our organization's mission important and how are we different? And really to engage new supporters. So there is that donor acquisition piece to this particular campaign. Next slide. So as I mentioned near the beginning, I'm aware that there are a couple of supporters who may be interested in speaking to other PWRDF supporters about potential legacy gifts. And for you, there are a couple of resources that we plan to provide to aid these conversations. So over the next few months, we will be creating a legacy giving page on the PWRDF website through which all of the mentioned gift options will be laid out. We will be providing information sheets or one-pagers on various gifting options. Should anyone be interested in, for example, a gift of stocks and they really need, the highlights, the elevator pitch about gift of stocks, we'll be able to provide the details and the instructions on how they can initiate that gift transfer. As well, we'll be providing a legacy brochure, which will outline all of our programs and gifting options for anyone who would like more general information. Because we're aware that legacy giving really is about planting that seed continuously. So if someone asks for a brochure 5 years ago, chances are they're still ruminating with that information as to what may be the best option for them. And on June 15th, a legacy giving survey will be distributed to our supporters. It will be a tool for our supporters to raise their hand and say they have already left a gift in will, or they would like to request more information about leaving a gift. It's essentially a way for us to learn more about our generous supporters and their level of interest in legacy giving, as well as an opportunity for them to provide feedback. So I know that, next slide. I know that many of you interact as volunteers, you interact with our supporters and educating them about the many development and emergency related programs that we will roll forward as well. Why should they support PWRDF? What kind of world would they like to see? And typically what the supporter journey looks like is to first learn more about our supporters and their giving interests, to cultivate these particular relationships and educate them about legacy giving. And then should they choose to come forward and identify that, I have left a gift in will, or I have left a gift of a life insurance policy, we need to implement a larger stewardship plan afterwards.